I first got my license, I thought it was going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I didn't have to rely on my mom to take me to school. I could do it myself. I could go wherever I wanted, when I wanted.
When I first got my license, when I took the course, the driver's ed course, it said over half of you will be in an accident sometime in your life, and I hadn't been in one. I was going, no way I'll be in an accident.
I thought about it before, you know, when you get in the car and you're drinking and driving and you say, man, I can talk my way out of this thing, you know, no problem.
When you get your driver's license, it's a big event in your life. Driving is a terrific privilege, but it's also a big responsibility. A car, truck, or motorcycle can be a great source of freedom, and it's important in today's society. How you use it does make a difference. You know about the things that can happen as a result of accidents: damaged property, injury, or even death. Most people say, that'll never happen to me. What you're going to see are 3 drivers that have one thing in common. They screwed up. They didn't seriously injure anyone. In fact, one of them didn't even have an accident. What did happen caused them a lot of grief. They have some interesting stories to tell.
I had 3 accidents since I've been driving. My first one was when I was coming around a turn and I put on my brakes because there was a stop van in front of me. It was turning and I didn't see it fast enough, and I skidded in the rear end of it. Didn't end up doing much damage to the van, but it ended up doing about $4,500 worth of damage to the car I was driving. We had to call State Highway Patrol, and they came out, and the other guy that drove the van had to get in the car. He got in the front seat and talked to the police officer about the wreck, and then I had to go talk to him. He made me sit in the back, and there's like bars in between the front and the back seat, and you can't get out because the lock, you have to unlock it from the outside. And it was kind of scary sitting back here while he was telling me, he was asking me to explain what happened, and he wrote it down. Then I had to sign it. In my second accident, I was in a rush. I was late for school, and I pulled out of our driveway into the road and hit the rear end of a car that was driving by. I ended up having to pay $500 for the rear end panel on their car. On my third accident, I was driving the van that my mom had to drive to work because I had wrecked the car the first time. I was driving around the parking lot, and I turned into a car, and I smashed their rear tail light out and dented both doors of the van pretty bad.
I was at a party with a couple of friends and had been drinking. When we left, me thinking, you know, I'm fine, I can drive, you know, no problem. You know, I was the driver, so my two friends didn't even consider driving. I pulled up to an intersection thinking that, you know, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I pulled out to make a left-hand turn, and an officer coming the other way saw something that he thought was wrong and pulled me over. When you got stopped, you know, you think about it beforehand. If it happens to me, I think probably that I can talk my way out of it, or I can get out of it somehow. But when it happens, there's no chance. I was sitting there, and all I could think about was, you know, I'm going to jail. You know, I can't believe this is happening to me. It was never going to happen to me, and here I am, standing on the roadside taking sobriety tests and failing them. If for no other reason, just because I was so nervous, I was shaking. After the field test and the officer took me in, you know, I was above the legal limit. The next day, after I spent the night in jail, I had to come up with $750 to get myself out. And between my two friends and I, we came up with it, which depleted pretty much everything that we had put away in the bank.
I was about 18 when I first received my license and a brand new car. A month after that, I was in an accident. I rear-ended one of my friends from school, and cost quite a bit of money for me, nothing really for him at all. And a lot of hassle was involved in it. I was in another accident, and we were drinking with some friends, and I got into the back seat of my car because I had had too much to drink and figured my friend could drive the car, but I was wrong because he thought he was going to go into a driveway to turn around, but it turned out to be a curb, and we went up the curb and came back down, and after that, for about 3 or 4 days, my car wouldn't start. Also, I had another, I let one of my best friend's sister use my car, and she didn't have a driver's license, which was very dumb of me on my part. And I figured, oh, she'll be okay. She's just going to go from her house, to my work to her house, and then come back to pick me up. Didn't work that way because she rear-ended somebody. I had quite a few tickets. I got my first speeding ticket as I was on my way to school, and I was maybe going 5 miles over the speed limit. I got another ticket by coming down the street, and it was a red light, and I made a right on a red light. And there was a cop on the other side of the street. Then I had another ticket. I was on my way to school and going down a residential street, and a cop pulled out of a driveway.
Okay, one person had several accidents and tickets. One had 3 accidents, and another got caught drinking and driving. Not good. Let's look at each of them again as they talk about the cost of their bad driving habits. Think about not only the dollar cost, but the inconvenience of being stuck without transportation.
I talked to my father the next day, and we decided that I would get a lawyer to bring me through this. And at $125 an hour, lawyers' fees are not inexpensive. And having the case drawn out over probably 6 or 7 months, it rang up a bill somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,800 just for a lawyer. Then court costs and processing fees and everything else. You know, after it happened, I guess about a week or so after it happened, the insurance company got a hold of the information that I had been stopped, and within a day, I was paying $1,100 insurance one day and over $2,300 the next day. You know, add those all up, the $750 for the bail, the $1,800 for the lawyer, and then double my insurance costs, and you know, it comes out to be a huge expense.
I was insured under my father's insurance, and since I was such a bad driver, they decided to cancel me. From then on, I had to pay for my own insurance and go with another company, and I couldn't afford the full coverage from what I was getting before. I had to only get a limited amount of coverage and have to pay for that myself. Even though my car was insured, I still had to pay money for the car, a deductible of about $500 each time the car was in an accident. Sometimes my father didn't report it, and the money had to come out of my pocket, and it was never less than $800 ever. So I was always in a hole, always working to get money so I could pay off my debts for the car. When I had all these tickets, it cost me quite a bit of money, and it was as if I was taking the money that I earned and just throwing it away. I never really had anything to spend it on except for tickets.
The first accident I had to go to court since that State Highway Patrol had to cite somebody when they had an accident. And when I went, I had to go during school. I had to take out of school so everybody knew where I was going. And I had to pay a fine, and the judge gave me a long speech about why I did the wrong thing. and it kind of made me feel really stupid. And he didn't take away my license, but he said if I got any more trouble with driving, that he would take it away. But he didn't, but my parents did when I got home. They took it away for almost a month.
My license was gone pretty much with no questions asked, for 90 days. And that perhaps was the biggest inconvenience of all. I mean, you don't really realize how much you use your driver's license and how big a privilege it is to have a driver's license until it's gone. So after the 90 days was up and we finally got, I was able to get my license back, I ended up spending another $80 just to try and get my license back through phone calls to the DMV and processing costs and having to take all the tests over again. It's a big inconvenience having it gone.
On the 4th of July, I was stuck at home because I had no way of getting anywhere to meet any of my friends. They were all at the beach and having a good time, and I'm here stuck at home. Wasn't too much fun, and I kept calling all my friends to see which one could pick me up and when they could and how long they'd get here, and hoping that someone would finally say yes. And my mom was gone. No one was home at the house, so I was just stuck. Nowhere to go.
I had to ride the bus because I was about the oldest one riding the bus at that time. Then after I had to ride it, and I didn't talk to nobody, just rode the bus. It wasn't a very good experience. And Mom had to come pick me up after practices, and sometimes it'd take longer than I had anticipated. I told her to come pick me up, and she'd have to wait around. She didn't like that. My girlfriend had to come pick me up for dates, and sometimes she couldn't, so we couldn't go out. That kind of got, it wasn't very nice, didn't like that. But most school events I couldn't drive to, had to have people come pick me up, and then have to leave when they did, and I pretty much had to go on other people's schedule because I couldn't make my own.
Pretty bad situations. Each of our drivers paid a lot of money out of their own pockets, and they all had to depend on other people for transportation. We'll make one last visit to our 3 drivers. Let's see if what happened to them has changed their attitudes about driving, and if they have any advice.
I think I learned a lot from my accidents because it's bad having to ride the bus and stuff. It was embarrassing. And I'm more careful now, and I try to watch where I'm going, try to take my time, make sure I leave home in enough time that I have plenty of time to get there. It doesn't hurt to be there a little bit early. And in my first accident, I think that inexperience probably had a lot to do with it because I had just had my license. I don't even think I had it a month when I wrecked.
Now, after this has happened to me, I'm not going to go out and have even one beer and get behind the wheel of my car and drive home. If I'm at a friend's house, I'll stay there. And I have stayed at friend's house just saying, hey, I've been drinking, I'm not driving home. Or I'll drive home with somebody who hasn't been drinking, someone who maybe we have, as they say, quoted as a designated driver. I don't do it anymore. And I'll tell you, before I got stopped, it was almost it was pretty much a common occurrence. You go out and you have a couple beers and you get in your car and you drive home. You don't even think twice about it. And now I think a lot about it. I mean, I don't drink and drive anymore. And, if for no other reason, just because of that one night. That's all it took for me. And I think it's all it took for the friends who were riding in the car with me that night, too.
My advice to someone who just got their license would be to pay 100% attention to their driving, to always be aware and never let someone drive your car, even though they may have a driver's license and so forth. That doesn't matter because something can always go wrong. You should always be very responsible with your car and obey all the street signs and speed limits around you, because if you don't, you can get caught.